There's a long one. Nothing but net. Oh, my goodness. Didn't see that coming. I'm diddly dee.
Yeah. Welcome to another episode of All Nat. I'm your host, Natalie, and most people call me Nat. So today I'm really excited to welcome one of my favorite people to follow on Twitter. His name is Brady Klopfer. I said that right, Brady?
Nailed it.
As my new headphones are falling out. Anyway, I'm so excited to have Brady on today. Like I said, he's one of my favorite follows, and he knows everything inside out, Dubs. So we're going to obviously be talking Warriors as we always do, but he's also excellent on the league at whole. He covers the WNBA. I'm going to let Brady tell you more about himself and where you can find his work. So, I don't want to be a disservice and let him tell you about himself.
Well, thanks for having me first and foremost, Natalie. I mean, I got three favorites from you there. You called me one of your favorite people on Twitter. So that's it's high true. Praise coming from you, Nat. Is you have a lot of good people on Twitter, and I see you interacting with a lot of people. So, I'm feeling like I'm part of a good club here.
Thank you.
But yeah, if people want to read my Warriors writing, I have it at Golden State of Mind. I work for SB Nation, so you can find all my stuff, occasional stuff at sbnation.com, but most of my stuff is at Golden State of Mind, which is our Warriors site. I also have some WNBA stuff at silverscreenandroll.com, which is our Lakers site, but we also me and Sabrina Merchant steal it to cover some LA Sparks and get some WNBA content out there in the world. And you can all find me on Twitter, Brady Klopfer NBA.
Yes, and we'll, obviously post that during the show. So you'll know where to find Brady. If you're not already following him, definitely do it. Like I said, he's excellent. I learned so much about basketball from reading his tweets and his work. He's really fair and reasoned and balanced in his analysis, something that some people may not think I always am. Not that I'm a journalist, I'm not, but I certainly am, I'm with the home team. So I really appreciate you having me on to bring your intelligence to this discussion and all your knowledge.
My pleasure. I'm so glad we're doing this. This is great. You're one of my favorite people to talk Dubs with. So it's great to not be confined to 260 characters, and we can actually have a conversation here about the Warriors instead of 2 sentences at a time.
I got a favorite from Brady. Okay, good day. So Warriors are rolling. We're 3-0.
Hell yeah.
So I think that means we're going to win the championship.
Clearly.
Steph is rolling. He just got Western Conference Player of the Week. The team looks good. I mean, obviously there's things to improve, but they look really good. The fan base is excited, right? And I feel like for many of us, it feels like validation because we've been saying it's going to be good, right? I mean, I definitely saw a lot of folks in the media saying we would still be, struggling for the play-in spot, and maybe we will. It's only 3 games in. I don't think we will. But, people weren't that high on us. And now I'm seeing the Dubs second in power rankings. And I'm seeing, Stephen A., who you take that with a grain of salt. But I mean, I've seen some Zach, people who you kind of trust their basketball opinions maybe a little bit more, saying we could be a contender, maybe go all the way. So what are your thoughts so far in the season?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. Honestly, it is only 3 games, but I don't see how you can look at those 3 games and not think that the potential for this team is just crazy high right now. Without having integrated Clay back into the fold at all, obviously we don't know how he's going to look, but if he looks anything like what we've grown accustomed to watching from him, I don't see why this can't be a team that's a contender. And it is kind of funny that people were sleeping on them so much, because I know it was a moderately disappointing year last year, but if you look at the depth and not just the quality of the players, but how well they fit the team, Kelly Oubre Jr., I think he's a pretty decent player, but he was just a horrible fit on the team. Brad Wanamaker, horrible fit on the team. Like the amount of time they played James Wiseman, who as a rookie was not ready for that role and was not a good fit with what he was bringing to the table. And now you replace them with people like Andre Iguodala and Nemanja Bjelica and Otto Porter Jr. They're just like, even if you don't think they're better players, they're just better fits for the way the Warriors like to play basketball. And then they were playing so well at the end of last year. I think they went 15-5 in the last 20 games before the play-in. So, they're probably not going to like maintain that win pace, but I think people probably should have looked at that as a little bit indicative of it, because that happened when Steve Kerr started to tailor his rotations a little bit more to the people who fit the team, like a little more Damian Lee, a little bit more before the COVID, a little
when
more
they were chasing wins, you mean?
Yeah, when they were finally chasing wins, and suddenly they started getting those wins, and like Jordan Poole ascended, and like people obviously I don't think should have looked at last season and been like the Warriors will be that team again, because Jordan Poole was horrible for the first few months of last season and he was really good for the last few months. Like it should be pretty clear what version of Jordan Poole we were going to get this year.
Right.
So there's just so many different areas where they should have improved, and they have. And I don't think that should be surprising for people, even though it is. But people have such a hard. I'm not trying to go on a rant here, Nat, but like people have such a hard time with this. Like they have so much difficulty separating what happened in the last year or two from what's going to happen this year or next year. Like even last year, that happened with the Warriors coming off of the 15-50 season where Steph was injured the whole year. I saw so many people being like, oh, I think the Warriors are going to miss the playoffs because they were so bad last year. It's like, well, obviously they were bad last year. They didn't have Steph Curry.
Exactly.
Like, why are you but people have a hard time. Like you get used to how a team is, and you kind of just assume that that's who they are until they prove differently, even if there are a lot of reasons to believe that a team one year is different than the team they were the year before. But like we kind of get stuck with our little like preconceived notions, like, this is a mid team, and they're a mid team until they prove that they're not a mid team.
Right.
I think it's okay to project betterness,
You're a little bit more reasonable than me. I mean, you give people the benefit of the doubt, because
I was curious what word you were going to use there.
Yeah, it's not the word I wanted to use, not because I'm not thinking of the right word, not that I had like a worse word in mind, but it's like it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but like I don't presume such innocent intent, like with the
that's fair.
with the they just can't like separate, because when LeBron and the Lakers didn't miss the season, when they didn't make the playoffs rather, because he went down that first year in LA, I didn't see anyone disqualifying them.
That's very true. That is very true.
And to me, it's a theme with Steph and the Warriors, right? Like he never gets the same. He's never given the benefit of the doubt, or after everything that he's done, he's never viewed like the other stars. Like I don't think if KD was the lone person remaining, that we would have been coming into the season saying the Warriors are going to miss the playoffs. They probably would have said KD's going to carry them and put them on his back and bring them, right? If there's some kind of bias towards Steph, I have a number of theories and reasons why I believe this, but it's to me, it's very apparent and clear, and it's what frustrates a lot of people in the fan base and gets people like me riled up, and it's just frustrating to see. So like that's why I said like some of this just feels like vindication, right? We still have a long season to go, but it's just like, why would you guys have expected anything less? It like doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, vindication is a great word for it, because like we're still dealing with the ridiculous narrative that Steph can't carry a team, which is just so like it's past funny and on to just like awful. But because you're totally right about that, and with KD, it's like how many times do we hear that the Warriors can't be contenders because they don't have KD anymore? They're not the team they were there, as though people have entirely forgotten what happened the 2 years before KD came, when it was Steph and Clay and Dre who were all, and Iguodala, and Looney, who are all still there. So yeah, like I think that's totally fair. Like yeah, that Steph doesn't get the credit for that he does deserve.
I heard someone earlier today. I don't know if you ever happen to like this hoop spaces. It's like they keep doing them. It's this guy Chris has handled hoop spaces. I think he's a Sixers fan, but he's been having like these hoop spaces every morning around, I want to say 10 Eastern. You may not even be up at that time, but he has these spaces and he has like people like fan bases from like people from all the different fan bases, some media. It's really great. And everyone's coming in and there'll be different topics for the day and we discuss them. But today was about who was coming out of the West, and he's kind of high on the Warriors. He's a Sixers guy, but he's still high on the Warriors. And there were people in there just saying things that I found like inexplicable. Like, like they're just like, I don't really see it. Like, yeah, Clay is coming back, but what really made the Warriors go was like Andre and Sean, and you guys lost those guys. Well, Andre is on the team currently, and I'm pretty certain that Sean, with all due respect, is not going to be the reason why the Warriors cannot contend again. Like, it was just some of the most ridiculous things that I heard. And I was just like, why are we still doing this? There was a guy, he was saying, like, he's still talking about, like, how Steph, MVP was Harden's. And I'm not going to, like, go back down, like, all of these silly old narratives, but it was really shocking for me to hear that there are people who still think like this. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun season. Like I already see like the narrative starting. It's fun. So I'm really excited. You said a few things when you started that like were interesting to me. One is Kelly Oubre, because you touched on him. Because the fan base, like they kind of still go at him now that he's gone, and I think it was fair what you said that he just didn't fit, but he's not necessarily like a bad player. Because I agree with that, but I don't think most people, or I don't think a lot of the people on Dub's Twitter agree with that. Why do you think Kelly didn't work out on the Warriors? I mean, he doesn't fit, but what are the reasons why it didn't work?
Honestly, I think like I see it as two things. I think the biggest reason was it is just kind of a complex offense that they run. And like, it doesn't always look very complex, but for the players, it's incredibly complex because Steph plays at such a ridiculous speed that you have to be able to make the right reads fast enough and be able to get there like mentally and then physically as well in a very quick amount of time. And that's just a thing that's very hard for most players. And I think because the Warrior system is kind of unique in that way, I think it's hard to see if a player is going to fit into that until you actually get them on the team and see how they do and get them in practices and whatnot. And this is slightly tangential, but I think it was Marcus Thompson, maybe it was Ethan Strauss, but I think it was Marcus who had an article like a few years ago. And he mentioned when the Warriors had Jason Thompson on their team for a very brief stretch a few years ago. And a lot of people were excited about Jason Thompson, thought he was going to be pretty decent. It didn't work out. They cut him after like a week. And Marcus said something that was like, basically the team couldn't admit this out in public, but what everyone knew behind the scenes was that he just couldn't keep up. Jason Thompson just couldn't keep up with the system, couldn't make the reads on time, couldn't make the decisions fast enough to keep up with Steph and Clay and Iguodala and whatnot. And I think that was kind of it for the main thing for Kelly Oubre, was that like he has so much talent. And sometimes you just don't have the skill set, or you don't see the game the right way, not even the right way, but the same way as the system needs you to. And he's never been a good passer. That's always been the weakness in his game. And he's not the isolation scorer that Andrew Wiggins is, so he can't really make up for the passing deficiencies that way. So I think it was just clunky from there. And then I think the second smaller reason was he just got off to such a bad start and he missed so many threes. And then at that point, especially in a system like that requires you to be intuitive and kind of carefree almost and really just free flowing. Once you start that, like 4 for 50 or whatever he had from the 3-point line last year, then you're like in your head, you're doubting yourself. You start not trusting your first instincts, and it's all kind of downhill from there. So yeah, I don't think it's really an indictment of him. Honestly, I think it's just like, it's a unique style, and you see some players who fit it really well, and you see some players who it just doesn't work with them. And I think he's just a player who doesn't work with them. And you look at him now in Charlotte, I mean, only 4 games into the season, but he's done really well in Charlotte so far this year. He's shooting well, he's scoring a lot, he's doing a lot of little things. So
I think he started to get killed a little bit for the game last night. I didn't catch it. I don't know what happened at the end because Charlotte, did you watch it? Because I think Charlotte
I watched a little bit of it this morning. I watched like some of it last night and some of it this morning. They ended up losing in overtime. They like gave up like 20 points in overtime or something.
Yeah, I saw Kelly getting a lot of blame for it. I don't know how valid that is, but and that seemed to make Dubs fans feel good, like, I'm glad he's not my problem anymore. So I feel bad for him, like I didn't think he deserved it, but whatever, I think he will be better in Charlotte though. So, good for Kelly, and we move on. The other thing you said was Belly's name, which I still struggle to pronounce. So can you tell me what that is so I can just call him Belly?
I believe, I could have this wrong, I believe it's Nemanja Bjelica.
Bjelica. Okay. Nemanja. All right.
But Belly is such a cool name that it's kind of like, why even say the whole thing when you can just say Belly? That's just
right.
It's such
How
a good
are we
name.
Spelling Belly?
So I've had this discussion with a lot of people because I'm very curious the best way to spell it. The most common way I've seen is Bjeli, because that's just like the way it would be if you just cut his name off to that part of it. But I like just spelling it like the word belly, like the body part. I think that's just funnier.
So you spell it Belly.
I do, like sometimes in tweets, in articles, I guess I don't usually use his nickname in articles.
Okay.
But if I did, I think I would spell it Bjeli just because that seems more professional. But
okay, I've been spelling it Beli, and I've taken out the second. Is it a G or
I
J?
like that. J.
Yeah. Okay. Again, I don't know what's right. We'll see what catches on.
Someone will have to ask him. But nicknames are hard like that, right? Because it's like this happened with Colin Kaepernick. Like, it was a huge thing because his name is Kaep. But when he shortened it to Cap, everyone would shorten it to Kaep, and he was like, "No, it's Kap if you're gonna call me Cap."
Right.
So like,
and I was like, "What?"
Hard. Yeah,
I never
like
understood
where'd you get that? Where'd that come from?
It's even like Kyrie, who I know is like a taboo name to say right now, but like I call him Kai a lot, and I just did KY because that's short for Kyrie. But now I see that it's KAI, and I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? And then I saw his Instagram the other day, and I was like, oh, it actually says KAI in his Instagram profile. Like, I don't follow him on Instagram, but I looked at his page, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll start saying KAI.
That's so interesting. Wonder how people arrive at that.
Yeah, I don't get it. Nicknames are funny, but I do like to respect like people's individual, like how they like to be called and names. So like Andre, he does not like people calling him Iggy. So I will not do it. But
people have not figured that out.
He says it so much. I won't do it.
I don't do it either. But it's wild to me how many people do that. Like, he's made it clear so many times, and it's never made a dent in people calling him Iggy.
No, it hasn't. I call him Trey or Andre, but I don't call him Iggy, so whatever. Okay, so we have a couple of games coming up. I really want to focus on the Memphis matchup, but I don't want to just like overlook OKC. Have they won any games yet this season? I don't think so. Okay,
I'm not sure they're going to be honest.
All right, but we
I don't want to jinx the Warriors here, but
right.
I'm not sure the Thunder are going to win a game.
We play them twice this week. So I don't know, maybe we'll glean something from the first game for the second game, but I mean they have like Shy there, right? And then is there anybody? That's it.
I think their only other notable player, I think, is Josh Giddey, who they took with the 6th pick, so 1 pick ahead of Jonathan Kuminga.
Doing so far. I haven't heard him mention that much as a rookie.
He's been decent. Like he's been starting because they have nobody. So he's been like starting and getting minutes, and he's been kind of playing like a rookie, like, the struggles you would expect, but he's like putting up a lot of points, getting a lot of assists and rebounds. Like he seems like a really good player. Something came out. I don't know how accurate this is because it's not a great source, but like someone interviewed his dad a few days ago, and his dad was talking about how he was kind of surprised that the Thunder took him at 6 because he thought for sure that the Warriors were going to take him at 7. So, and like he claimed that the Warriors had like told them that if he was available at 7, that they were going to pick him. So who knows if that's at all.
Maybe, but that would assume that the OKC, I guess, took Kuminga,
yeah,
right?
I think so.
Interesting.
So I guess they were locked in on one of those two.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, sorry, we got Kuminga, and I kind of like him. I mean, I say that just because I was worried based on like the way people were talking about him before we drafted him, and I think so far, I mean, he's hurt right now, obviously, but I've been pleased with what I saw, like for a rookie, and he has like a lot of potential, it seems.
He was a lot better at Summer League than I was expecting. Like he looks super raw to me. Like I would be pretty surprised if he is kind of contributing anything this year, but he really seems to have all-star potential. Like his athleticism is ridiculous. He has such good handles for someone his size. He's so explosive. I think he was horrible defensively last year in the G League, but you're an 18-year-old in the G League, you kind of expect that, but like he has all the tools to be a ridiculous defender with his strength and athleticism and whatnot. So yeah, I think he could be really good. I'm excited to see. I hope that he gets healthy and then the Warriors like have some blowouts so that he can actually get some minutes, because I doubt that he's going to get them otherwise.
Right. So I want you to help me settle something, and we're probably won't settle it during this discussion, but because it's going to be ongoing until Wiseman shows something, right? Every fucking time LaMelo plays a game, I have to see constant tweets about how the Warriors made a mistake. And even this morning, I saw some tweets that kind of annoyed me because it was like, this could be like the biggest blunder since, I forgot what they compared it to. Maybe it was the Pistons, I think, taking Darko. Is that what his name?
Oh, when they took Darko Milicic instead of Dwayne Wade and Carmelo. And
yeah, and like I actually don't think that's a good analogy. Like just because I feel like people ignore the roster that was existing at the time. Like I understand how great LaMelo looks. And I know there were reports about some of the decision making that went into the management's process that frustrated people, like that Wiseman speaks multiple languages and, shit that just doesn't seem relevant. And who knows how heavy of a factor that those were. I do think on some level they were drafting for fit. And people have their theories about that, right? But I feel like there's a lot of revisionism going on because Wiseman was a consensus top 3 pick. I think there were reports that Charlotte even would have drafted him if, so it's just interesting to me now how everyone just knows it was like the wrong pick. It was so obvious in the moment, and I'm just like, Clay was going to be coming back regardless to this team. And at some point the fit would have become an issue. I'm not saying that I don't know who's more talented. I don't like to make that kind of determination about a player so young, so soon. So I don't think that's fair. I understand what we've seen so far out of the two, but like I just don't see how people ignore it. Maybe I'm crazy, but like I just think there would have been fit issues like once Clay came back.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be less of an issue than I initially thought at the draft. Just because LaMelo has become like as good of a shooter as he's become, that I think, with his height, it would be weird, but I think they could they could make it work. Have Steph playing off ball a bit, have LaMelo guarding twos or threes, and playing a little bit off ball. But
Can
yeah,
he guard twos or threes?
I mean, I don't think he can guard anyone, to be honest, but at this point, but he has the height to, if he ever, I mean, he's gotten really tall, but he's a horrible defender. So like, yeah, probably can't guard anyone at the moment, but I mean, I think I agree with you. Like, I would be interested to see it. Like, I think they could make the fit work just because like their system has worked so well with people who can pass well and shoot well and push the ball up the court. So I think they could ultimately make it work. But I do think the criticisms are just, they're over the top and they're just not like fair. I think that it's a lot of, hindsight bias and a lot of people who I'm sure were not saying these things last year at the draft, and they're saying them now. And like, to your point,
I say this
also,
all the time. Jason Maples was the only person who I said draft Melo. He was saying Melo should be the first pick. I did not see anyone else like so high on Melo. I do know when Clay went down, you started to hear people say, well, maybe they should draft him. But and there were people like, no, you stick with whatever you were going to go with because Clay's coming back. So I don't think, it just wasn't this like definitive decision the way people are making it seem. I don't know. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
And no, not at all. But and like when people bring that up about Clay, it's so ridiculous because it's like every draft class has like maybe 2 players that are actually going to contribute immediately, right? Like last year it was like LaMelo ended up contributing because he was given such a big role, but like he was bad for the first few months. Like, I mean, he had highlights and looked like he would be good eventually, but like he wasn't helping them win games the first few months. I think like Tyrese Halliburton might have been the only player last year who actually contributed to a team winning. So it's like, you can't, that would be the stupidest thing a front office can do, would be to draft to try to fill the hole of a player who is injured for 1 year. Like you can't use a number 2 pick to try to replace Klay Thompson that year. If you want to try to use a number 2 pick to replace Klay Thompson, you have to be thinking like 3 to 5 years down the road, not for that year. So that line of thinking is just ridiculous to me from the start. And the other line of thinking, like on that note, I was really high on LaMelo going into the draft. I thought that he was going to end up being the best player. I didn't really project this because I don't do much draft stuff, so I don't like to pretend I have a smart opinion here. It's like I either get lucky or I'm stupid. But I was really high on LaMelo going in. But even with that, like he was a 25% shooter his last year before he came over. He was like 140 pounds soaking wet. I don't think anyone, even the people who were high on LaMelo, I don't think anyone expected him to be good this early. Like I think the consensus was this guy might be the best player talent from the draft. He might be an all-star in 5 or 6 years. No one thought he was going to be that good as a rookie. No one thought he was going to be as good as he is now as a second-year player. Versus Wiseman, even though he was young and only had the 3 college games, the kind of consensus with him was this guy's 7'1". He already has a good jump shot. He has ridiculous athleticism. There's no reason why he can't just be, at worst, a pick and roll guy who plays 15 minutes a night and shoots like 75% from the field. Which I think is still a very likely possibility that he comes back this year and is a quality guy in short bursts. So, anyone who claims that the Warriors should have picked LaMelo Ball because he would have been better for like maximizing their current title window they're making stuff up because they didn't see how good he was going to be this quickly. Because no one did. You don't expect a 19-year-old to do that.
The other thing I'm seeing is people like, to extend it or for like the future. And again, I might be like in the minority on this, but like, I don't think Steph is retiring anytime soon. I really don't.
He's not dropping off anytime soon either, it doesn't look like.
Exactly. And so I'm just like, the way that I see it is it worked out the way it should because Melo is that good that he deserves his own team, to have a team turned over to him and to do it. That was not going to happen on Golden State. It just wasn't. It's not even it's not even like, oh, okay, well, does he become the number 2 or the number 3? He just wasn't going to be the number 1 anytime soon. And I don't even see that he would have wanted to stay if that was the case, because his father, and I'm just saying, like, I'm sure his father would have been in his ears, but he's also deserving and worthy of his own team. He's that level of transcendent talent, it appears. And so,
Yeah.
I really don't have an issue with it at all. Like, it's not even like I'm just like defending my team, because I am no defender of this front office. But I think it's fine. Like, I'm not concerned about it, and I think I like the fact that we have a young core that's going to be developing under our main core. I think Wiseman still has a lot of potential. I don't know what that will be, but I think he still has potential. Kuminga looks like he has great potential. Moody's very solid right now, and Jordan is older than them, but still fully young. And you have all these guys to like come up. And I think that's great for us. I don't think the Pistons had like a young core that was coming behind those guys, and you still have like Steph and definitely Clay, at least. I mean, I don't know how Dre is going to age, right? He's always going to be a smart player, but just the role that he plays over time, I don't know how long his body will hold up. But, we have to see what Clay looks like coming off an injury. But his game and Steph's game, it lends itself to a longer career. And nowadays, I just really feel like people need to stop saying they're 33. They're like, LeBron is still playing, Chris Paul is still playing. Like these players are going to play longer than the players of the previous generations. So we need to stop acting like 33 now their career is almost over. It's not. And so I'm not that concerned about like extending the title window, because I think the title window is going to be there for at least another 5-6 years. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
At a minimum.
That's a great point, because we are just in a different era medically. And it is kind of silly to just assume that players are going to just drop off a cliff once they hit 31 or 32 or whatnot. We have so many. I mean, LeBron and CP3 are obviously like the shining examples, but there are a lot of other examples. Like there are a lot of players who maybe they're only like 70 to 80% of the player that they were in their late 20s, but are still all-star caliber players in their mid 30s, late 30s even. And I think it's silly to just put any timeline really on when that decline is going to come and when they're going to need to usher in kind of a new era, because really I think every front office should be trying to win. And if you have a core that's capable of winning, you should just be riding that core until they tell you otherwise. Like you can't start projecting that you're not going to win games. That's a bad way to do it. You gotta keep trying to win until you get hit in the face by the reality that you can't do it anymore. And then you find a backup plan or whatnot. And, that's why you draft the young players. That's why you keep them. Like some people hated that they kept them. Some people loved that they kept them. And, whatever the reasoning behind it, like that's why you keep a Wiseman and a Kuminga and a Moody, and hope that one of them does hit for either maximizing the window now or extending it in the future. And as far as like to go back a tiny bit to the Wiseman and Melo thing, like I'm trying to think how to say this without just like yelling at people.
You don't have to be politically correct on here.
All right, that's good.
I know you have to maybe for your job, but not with me.
It's good to get on here and rant a little bit. Every team and every draft has so many misses. It's just such an inexact science that it's like I get so annoyed by the people who that you were mentioning earlier, who every time LaMelo has, a 30-point game, they got a quote tweet the highlights. Warriors could have had this guy. Instead, they got Wiseman. Like, I'm sorry. That is every team and every draft. Like Steph was the 7th pick. Clay was a late lottery pick. Dre was a 2nd round pick. So many teams missed on those guys. Giannis was like 14 or 15. Kawhi was 14 or 15. Like there are very, very few LeBron Jameses and Anthony Davises where you go, this guy is definitely the top pick. Take him. It's going to work well. LaMelo was not that guy. No one in the draft was that guy. It just wasn't that draft. And like, you take the number 2 pick, and every single year you take the number 2 pick assuming that there is going to be somebody better than the guy you're drafting. Like, that's just the reality. It's very, very, very rare that the number 2 pick is going to be better than 3 through 60.
Right.
Unless Kevin Durant is maybe the only one. And it's just,
and he wasn't even the number 1 pick.
Right. He wasn't the number 1 pick. Someone thought that Greg Oden would be better. They were wrong. It was defensible at the time. It just didn't work out. And so I don't know. I get very annoyed by that type of analysis where you look at any player behind the person that your team drafted and criticize your team for not drafting that player. Like, this is such a crapshoot. It is not even close to an exact science. And there are so many factors that impact, especially in a COVID year where like these players weren't getting to do normal workouts. They weren't getting to have normal, combines and things like that. It's just, if you want to say that the Warriors were stupid for not drafting LaMelo Ball, and you want to bring that up every time LaMelo Ball does something good, then let's just like start going down the list and look at all the other years where they took someone where someone better was available behind it. Because other than Steph, Dre, and Clay, it might just be every draft that they've taken someone where someone else behind that player was better, because that's just how it goes. Like, you have
we were doing that with Jordan Poole for so long, and now, right, he's like popped, and now everyone's pleased. But we were like, they could have this guy, they could have that guy.
Absolutely. There's so many players who might not even be in the league anymore in their 3rd year who people are going, oh, we could have had this guy instead of Jordan Poole. So
it's, I'm not losing any sleep over not drafting LaMelo. And I think people think that we are. I mean, maybe some fans are, but I'm not. It just annoys me because, like, honestly, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm the nicest like person always on Twitter, but it's just like, I feel bad because Wiseman came off of social media. Like, I'm sure the noise was getting to him. And what I don't want him to do, which there was a little I felt going on last season, like the force feeding him the lobs, and then like his hands weren't good, but some of it also, they were just bad passes. But there was just like a very concerted effort to force feed him that used to drive me crazy during games, and not just letting him get like, possessions like naturally in the flow of the offense. And so I don't want him coming and trying to do like too much. Like, you literally with this team can like easily probably get like 8-10 points and like grab 7 or 8 boards, probably even more. Like, it's just, and be a lob threat. Like, you literally can do that. It'll be so easy for him.
Yeah.
So I just don't want him doing too much, that's how I feel. I hope he could defend a little bit. Obviously, that would be great.
That would be nice.
Some shots, right? But he can help this team, and you nailed it earlier when you said like in spurts, and that's how I feel. Like, if they figure out, like, it's kind of like Bazemore, right? He's better than Bazemore, but that's not what I mean. Like, Bazemore was really good for us at the beginning of last year when he was used in like a limited amount. And then when we had to start using him more and more, it was like more painful. And so I expect Wiseman to progress, but I think if they strike the right balance of like the minutes and how to use him, I think he can really like, increase, our ceiling actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I'm assuming that Steve Kerr learned from last year, and even when Wiseman is healthy, he'll not be the starter. And I think that helps him so much and helps the team so much, because like, I think one of the big issues for him last year was he's starting. So he's not only are you lined up against the best center every night because you're going up against the starters, but you're just going up against a default starting lineup. Versus if you're coming off the bench, you can really get picked and used in perfect spots. And like, that's how coaches should coach with their benches. And like, we saw this in the last Warriors game, right? Where like Gary Payton II played, I think, 17 minutes against the Kings on Sunday after playing 10 seconds in the first 2 games, because it was just a matchup that made more sense for his talents. Sacramento was full of perimeter scorers, perimeter playmakers, and the Warriors, didn't have Iguodala, of course. So like, that opened the door for him.
He was great.
He was really good. And that's like, the great thing about being a bench player is, I think a lot of people like to get on Steve Kerr for having kind of inconsistent roles for players off the bench, and kind of like some guys are getting like 25 minutes one night and 10 minutes the next night. And maybe some of those criticisms are fair, but I think, if you're really doing a good job with your bench, you're treating it like a puzzle, and you're putting different players in to different scenarios where they're going to have success. And so I think Wiseman, that will really benefit him, and it will really benefit the team if he's coming off the bench and Steve Kerr is able to put him in positions where you can exploit this player, you can exploit this matchup, you can get down the floor faster than, Enes Kanter or something like that, and you can really take advantage of that. And when you're in the starting lineup, you don't have that luxury.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to see what he can do in a role that hopefully is just a little bit more tailored for success to him, because he really got thrown into the deep end last year, and I don't think that was good for him, and it definitely wasn't good for the team.
No, I mean, I like a lot about the season, and I'm getting a lot of the tweets like, so now are you going to give Steve Kerr any credit now? And I was like, I will not do a damn thing, because what my criticisms were valid of him last year. No, but like, I really love the Kenny Atkinson hire.
Yes.
Kenny was one of the people, when people would always say to me, oh, if you replace Steve Kerr, who do you want? And I'm just like, call me crazy, but I like Kenny Atkinson. I've always thought he was a great coach. And so I was really happy for that pickup. And I do like that they got some coaches to focus on Wiseman's development. So all of those moves like made me really happy. And our pickups have been great. I mean, I know there's always a gamble with health, but I'm kind of feel like, and I understand the history of like players like Otto Porter, but I'm like, why is our team always the team that's talked about when it comes to like, but health? I'm like, I mean, are we not concerned about like health issues for the freaking Lakers? Like,
right?
Why is it our team? I don't understand. And so, and there are others, but I mean, like, to me, you should legit have concerns about them. Russ has been like injured like several years now and out. Anthony Davis, LeBron has been 2 of the last 3 years. I saw an article where he was like having some soreness, like, in that ankle, like high ankle sprains. We know how they are. And he is 30, however old he is, that people love to always tell me. So, like, I'm not saying like I don't wish injury on anyone, but like the injury risk to me, I don't think is like so much more greater for our team than anyone else's. And it's always just like, I mean, yeah, the Warriors, but so much depends on like, this and that and that. Like, everything with us is always harder. It's always like, oh, but this, and oh, it depends on how this person looks, and oh, but this. But I get tired of that shit, like, what the hell? I'm like, yeah, I know. Every fucking team requires some damn injury luck, okay? But barring injury, like, our team is fucking legit. And you know what? I think our team is legit even without Klay, which is why I'm so excited for Klay to come back, Like, it's going to be great. Like, Otto, like, he hasn't, like, had that game yet in terms of scoring, but he's still been, like, has a great net rating. He's still been, like, good in his minutes. He was boards the other night, and like we just mentioned, like, GP2, like, he came out, he was great, and like Jordan had a quiet night the other night, but it was like a quiet good night, it
was really good.
And so I mean, you've seen a lot of his young, he's been a little too, like, I don't know what the word is, but like he needs to slow down a little bit.
He gets a little overly ambitious sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And so, but he's like, that's going to happen. He's going to, like, he's a young player, so he's developing, but he's been good. Belly has just been, I mean, you couldn't have asked for more, like he's been amazing. Fit. Yeah. And Andre, like, he shut me right up, because I was not a Warriors fan who was like, bring Andre back. I'm like, look, I love Andre. That is my guy. He should have a statue, but like, what is this fucking nostalgia? Like, because he didn't look great in Miami, and so,
no, he looked really bad in Miami.
I just wasn't sure when he was going to be able to come back and get us. And I wasn't a fan of having him just to, like, help with the development of young guys. Because while that's important, I just didn't feel like we had a roster space to give up for that. Like, we're not the Miami Heat. We can't just be giving up a spot for like Hassan Whiteside to like stay there and like be Hassan Whiteside. So not Whiteside, the other guy. You know what I'm talking about? Haslem. Like, you know, we don't have that luxury. So, but like I've been pleasantly surprised with Andre. He definitely has something left in the tank, and so that's great. I mean, they look good. Dre is being aggressive, which is what we want. I mean,
really nice
aside from the turnovers, which is not really new to this team, I've been so impressed, even with the way they've been winning, right? Like the bench has extended the lead while Steph is sitting. And then sometimes they've like lost it and then got it back and just they've been steady, you know, and like each game has looked different. It hasn't been Steph just going off for each game. It's been really good. I've really enjoyed watching them so far. I'm really proud of the team.
Yeah, they've been fun, which is like last year was fun, I think, because Steph was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the defense was fun, but the offense was not fun to watch last year. It was painful. It was kind of a slog fest to like get through those possessions. They were just really ugly. And this year, even in the first preseason game, you know, the whole time, all through the preseason and all through these first 3 games, it's just looked like a different offense. And the results haven't always been there. Like you said, there's still a big turnover issue. There have been some off nights shooting from everyone. I think at this point has had at least one, if not 2 off night shooting, but the looks are there. The ball is moving. There's penetration. There's aggression. There's the extra pass. And it's, to me, it's almost just like relieving, because it was like, it felt like a chore sometimes to watch their offense last year. And it just felt like so much work to watch it. And
I know it was hard.
And this year it's fun. It's like, even if the shots aren't going in, the offense is at least, you want to watch it. And that's a nice thing.
They look good. I think right now they're like 5th in offense, when I checked, and
something
like
that.
13 in defense. Where do you think the defense is going to be this year? Because I mean, I think that's people's biggest concerns when you lose players like Oubre and Bazemore, although I think that's a little bit overstated. But do you think they can maintain and be a top 10 defense?
I think they can. I mean, first off, I just have that much faith in Draymond Green. To be honest, like I just think he's such a phenomenal defender, and one of the few guys who really impacts the entire team defense and not just the position he's defending. I'll be curious to see how their defense does with the amount of small ball it looks like they're going to play. Sometimes in the past, that's really given them just an unstoppable defense. And sometimes it's been more like the trade-off where you're not going to play great defense, but you're going to score so many points that it doesn't matter.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how that works out. But ultimately, I mean, I think it'll work well in small ball, and you've got Draymond Green in all those small ball lineups. You've got Kevon Looney, who's a very good defender when you go big. Andrew Wiggins, I think, has struggled a bit in these first few games defensively, at least relative to what we're used to from him. But I kind of chalk that up to some of the issues that he was dealing with in training camp. Yeah, with his knee. So like, I'm assuming
he was good on Fox the other night. Actually,
yes, that was a big step, because the first 2 games were pretty rough. Admittedly, like really difficult players to defend and playing both LA teams. So that's probably part of it. But like, he'll bounce back and be a quality defensive player. And the guys off the bench, Porter's a good defender. Iguodala's certainly looking like he's still a good defender. GP2 obviously is great there. JTA is really great. And then whenever they get, Clay back, that is going to help. Like, I don't know how good of a defender Clay is going to be recovering from these injuries, but I think it's pretty safe to say he's going to be better than Jordan Poole.
Right.
But even Jordan Poole, especially against Sacramento, that to me was one of the better defensive performances we've ever seen from him. Which is, low bar is low, but like he's making really great strides. I think Mike Brown said yesterday that Poole has by far made the biggest defensive gains of any player on the team this year. So that's good. So yeah, I think they can be top 10 for sure. it's just a matter of, I think it's kind of a matter of what lineups do they decide to play, because like sometimes your best defensive lineups are so poor offensively that it's not worth playing them. And like, if you have to settle for being like the 11th best defense because that's what gives you a top 3 offense, then I'm fine with that. But I think, especially in the closing quarters when they're able to kind of go to their death lineups of sorts, I think they'll really be able to lock down. And ultimately Draymond Green is such a key for unlocking interesting defenses. And I think that's really going to help them against the good teams or against the playoff or against teams in the playoffs, because then you can start to game plan and you can really start to like key in on matchups and start to kind of like take advantage of people, or even just, do what they've always done against Russ, let him shoot, things like that. Like the Warriors have always been like good at that, credit to Ron Adams or whoever it is that, is the main person behind the defense these days. They've always been really good at, you can date it back to leaving Tony Allen open in the 2015 playoffs.
Right.
They've found those unique ways to kind of play with other offenses and get good results. So I think it'll be a good defensive year for them.
Okay. So I have one more thing I want to talk to you about before I kind of switch gears and we just focus on like Memphis. Andrew Wiggins, because I'm sure you see me defending him up and down on Twitter. That's my guy. And it's so funny. Sometimes the way I defend positions, like even like his vaccine stance, which I don't want to get into, but I had people calling me like MAGA. And I'm just like, calling me anti-vaxxer. Meanwhile, I just got the booster yesterday. So it's amazing the conclusions that people will draw because you defend a stance. But like,
Gotta love Twitter.
I'm a lawyer. It's my innate nature to just like defend and not necessarily just like what's the popular stance. And so with Andrew Wiggins, I think people think like I love him to death and I don't want him traded and I think he's our best player. And I don't think any of those things. I'm really fine with us trading Wiggins if it makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I think Ben Simmons is the only person I'm just like, I can't get on board with. I've tried. I really have. I just can't with him. But outside of him, I've been like, oh, sure, Brad Beal. Some people are talking about Brandon Ingram. I don't think that's actually a possibility. I remember last year I think Lonzo Ball was like for Oubre, right? But I mean, I've really been open to like a lot of the trade ideas that I've seen. What I don't like is like him being attacked like constantly, like that layup, like it sucks that he missed that, but like that became like the story of the game. Mm-hmm. And he was like a plus 18 that night. He had 17 points. I thought he was pretty good, like I said, guarding, Fox. I mean, he had a solid night overall. They won the game. And I was seeing like Andrew Wiggins slander up and down my TL. And so I don't agree with like the constant attacking of him. Like he cannot help what his contract value is, right? The Warriors knew that when they took him on. I really am not a fan of saying someone is overpaid or they make too much money, because we all try to make the most money that we can.
Get paid.
Yeah, so I'm really not a fan of saying statements like that. But in terms of what we think of a player who makes this kind of money does on the court, I think we understand that he's probably not going to give that level of production. And the Warriors are okay with it. They seem to be okay with it. They traded for him knowing those things. So I don't get like why he's attacked the way he is. And I don't need you to defend that stance or anything, but I am curious to know, what do you think are their chances with Andrew Wiggins? Like if we don't trade and he stays on the team, like what are do you think they still have a good chance, or are you that concerned about him that you really think they need to trade him?
No, I don't think they need to trade him at all, to be honest. Like I've been pretty hard on him on Twitter. And Twitter is just, I mean, this as well as anyone, like Twitter is just an aggressive and unhealthy place.
The jungle.
It's a jungle, and you get such extreme opinions. And like Andrew Wiggins is like the epitome of this, because like I see your mentions when you say anything good about him, and it's just full of of people who are convinced that he's the worst player in NBA history. And then on the flip side, I say something critical of him, and I just get quote tweeted for days about people who think that like he's clearly better than Draymond Green, clearly can be the second best player on a championship team. The Warriors would be crazy to consider trading him for anyone. It's just the reactions, they're just so extreme in one way or the other.
Right.
But with Wiggins, like, first off, I think the thing that, like, not to sound pretentious and like I need to explain things to people, but the thing that so many fans miss is that the Warriors are over the tax with Steph, Clay, and Draymond.
Right.
Like, cut everybody else out, they're over the tax with those players. So everyone who comes with the line that the Warriors need to trade Andrew Wiggins because he's overpaid and they should use that money on someone else, you can't. Like, trade him for nothing and you still have zero money that you can use to sign anyone else. Your only chance of using his money on someone else is if you trade him for someone else who's making a ton of money, because otherwise you're just losing that potential salary spot. And that's been, like you said, the Warriors are fine with playing it. That's been the end game the whole time, right? Like,
right.
They signed and traded for D'Angelo Russell, and they did people forget this. D'Angelo Russell, the trade offer that he got from, I think it was Minnesota at the time when he was thinking of signing with them, or maybe it was Phoenix. Now I can't remember. He got an offer that was like $5 million a year less than the max, and that's what he was going to sign. And then when the Warriors did the sign and trade for him, they pushed to have it be for the max because they knew that that is how you create a max contract salary space so that they could then trade him for potentially a different player who was making maximum amount of money, which they ended up doing with Wiggins. And now Wiggins is in that same spot where it's like, at worst, you're spending a lot of money on him. Okay, who cares? You're printing money. You're a $5 billion organization. At worst, he has a maximum contract salary spot so that if Bradley Beal is available, you can make that trade with relative ease and make it actually work out. So, from that standpoint, like, I don't think he's anywhere. I don't think he would get a contract from the Warriors that's anywhere close to what he's currently getting paid.
Right.
But it just doesn't matter for them. All that matters is the player that he is, because they can't use that money elsewhere. And he's a totally fine starter. I've been hard on him because I don't think he is anything special as a player. I don't think that he is, a guy that they should necessarily be building around. I think they should treat him as, the way they treat a Kevon Looney, where, hey, it's good to have you on the team.
Do you feel like they're building around him?
Do I what?
Do you feel like they're building around him?
No, not at all. Not at all. But I think a lot of fans want them to, or I've heard some criticisms at me that the Warriors should be treating him like a franchise player, like the guy who they can keep building around. And it's going to be an interesting thing because he's going to be a free agent after next season.
Right.
And I'll be curious to see what the Warriors do, because I think there's a chance that someone will offer him a huge amount of money.
Really?
Still, I don't think that a smart front office would necessarily do that. But, he scores 20 points per game. He plays good defense. I think there are a lot of kind of antiquated general managers out there that go, this is 20 points per game. We'll take it. I mean, look at the deal DeMar DeRozan just got. Like 3 years, $85 million.
Right.
I think. And he doesn't play any defense, but puts up, 25 points a game or whatnot. And
what kind of contract do you think he should have? Like, how much should he be making a year?
Wiggins?
Yeah.
Oof. This is hard because players just get, I'm like you, I don't like to say overpaid or anything like that, but players get like, the market builds them up and they end up getting more than they probably, wanted to be, or more than the GMs wanted to pay them. I think Wiggins should be
20 million?
I'd say like 15.
15? Okay. So if the Warriors choose to want to keep him after he leaves, we know them. They're not going to offer him like a big.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think the question for him will be at that time, especially if they've won, right? Because that always changes things. Like if they won a chip or two, right? And he's a part of that, you don't necessarily want to lose it. So I think the question for him will be like, and he does seem to really like. Well, I don't know. He didn't seem to like. He didn't seem to like that he thought the front office leaked things about his vaccine stuff. But
this could have changed things.
Right. But he does seem to really like the players and Steph and the team. And again, we just don't know because 2 years from, and one more year after next, I mean, we just don't know what will be happening with everyone. But I guess the decision at that time would be if they decide they want to extend an offer to him, it's probably going to be less than like the max, obviously. And so I guess it's for him is, do I want to stay here? Do I like it here enough to take like a discount, or am I just going to go somewhere else and make more money? Right. That's probably if he hasn't been traded by that point.
Yeah. And my guess is like, I would assume that the Warriors are a little bit tuned in to that, conversations with him or conversations with his agent, because I do think for the Warriors, you don't want to risk just having that contract expire and then he signs elsewhere and then you lose that ability to use that money on someone else. Like they tried really hard to trade Oubre last year for that reason. It was like, we're not going to resign him. If we don't trade him, then we're just letting that money expire. So I've heard that they tried pretty hard, but that there was just like nothing there. And that like they weren't gonna just trade him to get rid of him, because that's just as bad as letting him walk. But I think the reality is like he was having a bad year and he was an expiring contract. Like who was gonna give them anything unless they were willing to like put it
bodies and the salary and then figure it out.
Yeah, like people, like there were all the, like you mentioned, the rumors about Lonzo Ball. It's like, why would New Orleans trade Lonzo Ball for half a season of Kelly Oubre, who's then going to be a free agent? Like that's not in anyone's best interest. So I'll be curious to see like this offseason or next year if there are more trade rumors around Wiggins, because if the trade rumors start to kind of heat up more, I would assume it's because the Warriors don't think that they're going to be re-signing him and they want to get something back before they get there. But we haven't heard any of that yet. So hopefully it's not something that they're concerned about. Because you're right. It's always interesting with players like this. Like when they reach free agency and they could probably get more money going elsewhere. Like, do they want to stick around in the place where they've seemed happy, where they're competing for a championship? Or do they want to go somewhere where not only are they going to make more money, but probably can get more shots? I mean, Wiggins is very clearly the second option behind Curry. Right now, he might be the third option behind Poole.
Yeah.
And that's without Clay coming back, you know, and he's not ever going to get the defensive accolades that he probably thinks he deserves playing next to Draymond Green, because Dre's always going to be the guy who's getting, the majority of the acclaim there. So, it'll be interesting to see what he does. It'll be interesting to see what the team does. And I'm really curious to see what contract he gets, to be honest, whoever it comes from.
So we are playing Memphis on Thursday. I'm pretty excited about that matchup. It's a rematch of the play-in. Right.
That was a good game. As sad as that was, as rough of an ending as it was a good game.
It was. And I don't know. I kind of have like a sneaky suspicion Steph is going to go off just because I doubt that him or Dre like losing that game. So I expect to have a very locked in Steph and Dre. But Ja is playing like on another level this year. This might be like his breakout year. Definitely could have been a contender for Western Conference Player of the Week. Some people think that he got snubbed for it. So what do you think about the Grizzlies? Like, I mean, that matchup and how they match up with us, and just in general, like, do you think they are going to be a play-in team again? Do you think they lock up one of those 6 spots?
Ooh, I think they could lock up one of the 6 spots, to be honest. Like, I think in a normal year, they would be a play-in team again. But just with the amount of issues in the Western Conference right now, just, the amount of injuries, Jamal Murray, Kawhi Leonard, The Mavs look completely useless with Jason Kidd coaching them right now. The Blazers, I just always have so many question marks about them. So I think the door is open for them. Like, I think they should be behind those teams in a normal year, but I think the door is open for them to sneak into the 5th or the 6th spot. I think the play-in is probably more likely, but I definitely think they can contend for it. But they're a funny team because, like, I don't know about you, but when I think of the Grizzlies, I just always think of like the grit and grind Grizzlies.
Yes,
Because like I think of them as being like slow, bad offense, incredible defense, tough and whatnot. And I was looking at like their net ratings today, and I think I'm not sure what their official net rating is, but on their on Cleaning the Glass, which is the site that eliminates the garbage time minutes,
yeah.
they have the number 29 defense in the league and the
Really?
number 1 offense.
Oh my God.
So they're just like completely flipped the script, or at least early
I would
on.
have not
I
thought.
expect.
Oh, but Dillon Brooks is out, right?
Yeah, he's in out, so
Okay.
that hurts them. And you know, it's 3 games or whatnot, so that will obviously like stabilize here at some point. And they played, you know, they played the Lakers, they played the Clippers, so they've played like some good offenses, so that probably hurts a bit. But you know, at least early on here, like that offense is so good. And Morant he looks like an all-star. Jaren Jackson Jr. is healthy, and he is looking as good as I think a lot of people thought he was going to be before he started having some of the injuries and whatnot. And they're just a fun team. They're still as tough and as kind of gritty as the grit and grind Grizzlies, but now they're like fashionable also, you know. They're fun, and they're full of highlights, and they got a lot of players who you just can't take your eyes off of on the court. So I think it's going to be a really fun game, because I agree with you that Steph and Dre are really going to want to get that game back.
Yeah.
And
they just lost to the Lakers, which I kind of wish hadn't happened, because they're not. I mean, I don't think any team ever wants to lose, but they're not going to want to win 2.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to lose 2 in a row. So they're going to be, and of course, they just like, he's coming, he's playing against Steph, he's going to want to show out. Like, you know, it's just, I think it's going to be a tough game. They're good.
Yeah.
They're pretty good.
They're really good, and they bring it every night. That is not a team that takes any off days.
No. I mean, I don't know, because our schedule is sort of soft with like a handful of games sprinkled in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I know we have like the Bulls, I want to say in early November, Charlotte, but I mean, I don't want to say like any team. I don't think any team is a gimme, but I think this is one of the harder teams we're facing in the near future.
Yeah.
And so I expect that to be a good game, and to be close, actually, probably down to the end.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down right to the end, and I think it seems like a game that's just destined to have Curry versus Morant just going at each other for like the final 4 minutes, and just like fireworks, must see TV. And so I think it'll be fun.
I hope we get it. It's not on national TV or NBA. It's not on anything. So I was surprised. It's a league.
That's rude, right?
It's
yeah,
very rude. Like, it's
like
the
they should have,
rematch,
right? And the Warriors have like half of their games on national TV this year too. So that should have been one of them. Someone messed up there.
Oh, okay. Well, I just really quickly on like the standings, where do you see the Warriors finishing this season?
Oh, a lot higher than I had initially predicted.
What changed your mind?
Everything, honestly. Like, so yeah, I know that's bad, but so we did like a predictions piece at SB Nation like right before the preseason started, and I predicted that the Warriors would finish 6th in the West.
Shame on you, Brady. I'm glad I didn't read that.
I know. I'm very embarrassed now. But so here was my reasoning though, Nat. Like I thought that they would be one of the like three or four best teams in the West at the end of the year and in the playoffs. Once Clay is back, once they've really found everything to click. I thought that they would need more time to get into it this year. I thought that, you know, the new additions would take a little bit longer to get set in. I thought Steph and Dre might kind of ease into this season a little bit after the way that last year ended, and the team kind of seemed like the team kind of ran out of steam in the play-in games. I thought they might play a little bit more like they were pacing themselves. I didn't fully believe Steve Kerr when he said that they were going to chase wins this year. I thought there would still be a little bit of trying to toe that developmental line, which we haven't seen yet. But mostly just like, I watched the first preseason game and I watched the way the ball moved, and I thought, I got this wrong. They're gonna be better than I thought. I always thought they would be really good at the end. I just thought they would need more time to get there, But like, I literally in like halfway through that first quarter, I just had an, oh yeah, they're gonna do so much better than I thought. So when you look at like the West with all their issues, because like I mentioned, the Kawhi injury, Jamal Murray injury, Jason Kidd not seeming to know how to coach a basketball team, Kristaps Porzingis being horrible for that matter, and then I think even the other teams, the Suns, as good as they should be, it's most likely that Chris Paul is going to have some injury issues at some point during the season. The Lakers not only have a lot of injury issues, but they just seem disjointed.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Utah Jazz might be the only team in the West right now that actually seems to be playing the way that you would expect them to play, and they're always a giant question mark anyway. So right. I think the Warriors, I think they're going to end up probably like the 3 seed right now.
Yeah, I had them as a top seed, and it was me, not necessarily for the beginning of the season, but just me giving room for any kind of like issues that may arise. Like, even though it seems silly, even working Clay back into the offense, because we don't know what they're going to be like at that time, and if they're going to be rolling and where Poole is going to be at, and then you have to like figure that out. So I just was giving them time for like whatever kind of issues that may arise, but I still had them as like a top 4 seed. Not necessarily 4, but just I thought they would have home court. But I think that they're going to finish with one of the top 3 records in the league, and I think 1 or 2 actually. They're off to a good start so far, and like I do think teams like the Lakers are going to be good at the end, but I think they're going to figure out things, and I think people didn't anticipate that for teams like that. I mean, and like you said, the only team that really is still like continuity is Utah. I mean, Denver too, but they're still missing some, people, notably Jamal, really. So like, we have continuity, something that we haven't had for a while. And now you're only adding Clay. I mean, well, not that much continuity, the core, but like we added in a lot of pieces, and they did pick it up really quickly. But then now you're adding Clay back, who already knows the system and everything. So I think they're going to be a top seed. My prediction is we're going to come out the West. We're definitely going to be in the Western Conference Finals. I don't see any less than that, and that's what I'm sticking with. But
I love it.
I have a very strong faith and belief in Stephen Curry. I have a really strong belief in this core of, Clay, Dre, and Steph. And I'm just really excited. I'm so excited for the season. I won't hold that number 6 against you. I'm going to say this. There's a notable media person who like is sort of a known Warriors hater. Or maybe he's a Steph hater, I'm not sure. But like in the preseason, he like hit me up and he's like, okay, we were having a conversation about the Warriors, and he was insistent. Like, he thought like a 6-2. He's like, you're not one of the top teams in the West. I was like, we're absolutely one of the top teams. They're going to be a contending team. Like, I don't even understand this. And so he like called me up and he's just like, I want to revise my statement.
Perfect.
I loved it on the Warriors. He's like, I think you guys are going to be one of the top 4 teams, possibly top 3. And I was like, yes. So I'm glad to see people coming around.
that's always very like satisfying.
It is. That's fun. Especially because you guys like write about it and follow it and definitely understand this game on a deeper level than I do. So I'm always happy like when really smart people like are aligned with me. It feels good. Brady, this has been great. Like, I want to keep talking and talking, but I'm gonna stop here. I have to have you back on again because like there's
Absolutely.
so many more things I want to pick your brain about, and I know everyone would love to hear more from you.
Let's do it, Nat. Anytime. This was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you on the TL, of course.
You know it. Getting in some argument.
All right, later, Brady.
Bye, Nat.